Welcome to another episode on the Intelligent Observer. Today, it's going to be different. A human intellect versus AI prediction challenge on a real-world current geopolitical crisis. Before we start, please subscribe for more interesting content. When AI didn't see war coming, a real world. Test of machine prediction in the Iran crisis. Tonight, we're doing something different. This is not another news digest or diplomatic summary. This is a case study, a real-world test of artificial intelligence's ability to predict geopolitical outcomes and how it stacked up against human insight during one of the most volatile moments in recent world history. We're talking about the 2026 Iran crisis, a high-stakes confrontation between the United States, Iran, and Israel that pushed the world to the brink of a new Middle East war. It involved nuclear talks, massive military buildups, sanctions, protesters inside Iran, and statements from world leaders warning of imminent conflict. In late February, the US and Iran wrapped up intense nuclear negotiations in Geneva without an agreement. Talks were described as significant, yet ultimately inconclusive, leaving the region on under. Este your trial. Meanwhile, the United States had deployed one of the largest concentrations of military forces to the Middle East in decades. 2 full aircraft carrier strike groups, dozens of fighter jets, AWACS, refueling tankers, and surveillance aircraft. Numbers not seen since the run-up to the 2003 Iraq invasion. President Trump publicly warned that sometimes you have to use force, and that if Iran failed to accept a comprehensive nuclear deal, one that included halting enrichment and missile development, the US was prepared to act. For the purposes of this experiment, an artificial intelligence model was given a single binary question. If the Geneva talks fail, will the United States strike Iran? Yes or no? The AI answered no. This script is about what happened next, and what this tells us about the limits of AI in forecasting geopolitics, when psychological momentum, political pressure, and allied influence collide. Picture this. A week after those talks ended, as the US threat of force loomed, Israel announced a preemptive strike against Iran, launching air and missile attacks after months of joint planning with Washington. Reuters reported that US military action also accompanied the Israeli strikes in early hours of February 28th. That strike, called Operation Lion's Roar, by Israeli officials, struck targets across Tehran and other Iranian cities. Airspace was closed, sirens blared, and both nations entered a new level of confrontation. Almost immediately, Iran responded. It launched missiles and drones at US bases across the Middle East, Qatar, Kuwait, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Jordan, Bahrain, in an operation officials called Truthful Promise 4. France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, while condemning violence, urged Iran to return to negotiations, even as they distanced themselves from the military action. Meanwhile, Russia condemned the US-Israeli strikes as unprovoked aggression, warning of catastrophic regional consequences and deepening diplomatic rifts. Within hours of that strike, contrary to the AI's prediction, the conflict was real, violent, and spreading across multiple borders. So, why did the AI get it wrong? Why didn't an advanced machine foresee kinetic action when the conditions seemed so clear? To answer that, we have to look at how AI thinks versus how humans interpret high-stakes politics. Artificial intelligence, as powerful as it is, reasons in patterns. It digests vast amounts of historical data, aggregates structural variables, and produces probabilities based on precedent. In this case, the AI's reasoning included several core assumptions. It saw that in many past instances of military buildup, even massive deployments, diplomacy persisted. and strikes did not necessarily follow. History contains multiple cases where large US naval and air forces were amassed near conflict zones. Yet, no direct military strike occurred at that time. These include tensions in the Pacific over North Korea and naval deployments in the Mediterranean during other crises. Those patterns told the AI that deployment and rhetoric did not automatically predict a strike. And structurally that makes sense. A rational actor model suggests that the United States, especially after costly wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, tends to exhaust non-kinetic options first. Sanctions, diplomacy, economic isolation, before choosing to attack. AI weighted that heavily. But here's the crucial point where AI underestimated the situation. It treated the world as a system of probabilities, where rhetoric is often reversible and escalation is gradual. It failed to adequately account for psychological forces that drive decisions in real time, a factor humans often capture intuitively. Humans, unlike machines, pay close attention to momentum. Look at the timing of events in this case. The US wasn't just threatening force abstractly. It had already deployed one of the largest military flotillas in decades, including 2 full carrier strike groups with fighter wings, AWACS, and refueling tankers within range of Iran. Separate reporting even suggested planning included regime change scenarios, with planners discussing targeting high-level Iranian leadership if ordered by President Trump. Furthermore, President Trump himself publicly endorsed the possibility of regime change during this build-up. When rhetoric escalates to that level, with direct invocation of force in public addresses, military build-up at historic scale, and allied pressure from a close partner like Israel, inertia is created. Leaders do not always have the luxury of waiting forever. Political pressure, internal audiences, and allied expectations can push decision thresholds forward. Humans are sensitive to these dynamics. We see how language becomes commitment, how deployment becomes leverage, how allied pressure narrows choice architecture. In short, we sense narrative gravity. AI, at least in its predictive mode, relies on structure, not narrative, not prestige, not the emotional escalation in decision circles. And when narrative escalates fast, as it did here, AI predictions grounded in probability distributions lose ground to human intuition about human behavior. Another major factor AI tends to underweight is the role of allied influence, especially from powerful partners with real security concerns. In this conflict, Israel was not a passive observer. Israeli leadership had been vocally opposed to prolonged talks and publicly skeptical of diplomacy's ability to halt Iran's nuclear and missile programs. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz stated that action was necessary, and the operation was reportedly planned in coordination with Washington for months. Human analysts intuitively understand that when a key ally exerts sustained pressure, not just diplomatic lobbying but strategic alignment with military assets, the political calculus shifts. AI, in contrast, tends to aggregate such factors as weighted inputs without fully capturing how allied expectations cascade into domestic political decision loops. A third limitation: AI does not experience urgency compression when deadlines, rhetorical ultimatums, and military timelines converge. The Geneva talks in late February were described by various mediators as intense and decisive. Iran said progress was made, yet core issues remained unresolved, particularly over uranium enrichment and lifting of sanctions. Iran continued to reject core demands, and the US persisted with sanctions and military pressure. The last chance framing when coupled with an imminent force posture, had the psychological effect of compressing decision space. Leaders had less room to back down without appearing weak to domestic and international audiences. Humans are sensitive to this type of momentum trap. AI generally is not, unless explicitly taught to model it. So, what is the takeaway? If this crisis teaches us anything, it's that AI is a powerful tool, but not a standalone oracle for human decision outcomes. AI excels at analyzing structural patterns, institutional constraints, historical frequency, and rational actor models, and it will tell us what usually happens and how systems behave over time. That information is incredibly valuable. But AI struggles when events enter a non-linear, high-volatility zone, where momentum, narrative escalation, allied psychology, leadership personality, and prestige dynamics can dominate classical patterns. Geopolitics is not just a system of probabilities. It is a web of stories, commitments, speeches, symbolic moves, and reputation mechanics. AI sees data. Humans see momentum. And when those diverge, humans, at least in this case, were correct to recognize the risk of kinetic escalation. The question going forward is not whether AI or human analysts are better. It is how we integrate both. Use AI to understand the structural backdrop and base rates. Use human insight to detect narrative accelerants and psychological traps. Use both together to predict not just what history suggests, but what today demands. That is the future of geopolitical intelligence, and one of the most important lessons from this real-world test.